And a good morning to everybody. Today is the 26th of June, 2018. Thank you for coming. My name is Roy Potter, and this is the Potter Expositor. And I wasn't actually going to do this today. I no sooner got back than I had to take off again. It seems like I'm always traveling somewhere. I went down and I listened to the Ventures last week and did some other things, and an old group, and I put a couple of those shorts on here just to show you that they were playing. And then after I left, I thought, I think I'll put up some more music, and so then I put up that thing on ZZ Top, and then the 3 songs of Yes as I drove back. So I hope that wasn't too much. I enjoy doing that. I think some people probably don't get to travel as much as I do on the different places, and so I think I like to kind of share that, and I hope you all that appreciate it really well. I hope you appreciate it, put it that way. I really like Yes. I never actually saw them in concert, but their music was like one of a kind, and so it's good stuff. I like it. Of course, ZZ Top. I was a hard rocker, so that really resonates with me. I believe I do have the chat on this morning. Let me take a look and double sure that it's functional. Yes, it looks like it is. Good morning, good morning. I got a little late start this morning for a number of reasons, and I won't get into that, but I just apologize. Usually I like to start on the hour or the half hour. But as usual, I have a busy schedule I have to take care of today, so we're going to just have to bang this out as fast as we can. Notice I called this Deeds Not Force, and there's a reason for that. There are a lot of attacks now coming from, and I don't really know how to call it, because I don't really like to say the leftists or the Democrats, because the left-right paradigm is really that's presented to us by the politicians, by the establishment, really isn't the way it is. But by the same token, the nastiness of leftist Marxists, for lack of a better term, is in fact the case. And even though they said that it was wrong if Donald Trump questioned the results of the election, that would damage our democracy, of course, they're out doing it in force. So you notice, even in a situation like that, what they accuse you of is what they do or plan to do. Well, as most of you probably know who have been listening to anybody on any conservatives or reading any conservative blogs or any of that stuff, you'll be seeing that there have been a great, it's even coming up in mainstream news, that there are now not just attacks on conservatives and Trump supporters, and not just denying them access to places, but actually, as we saw during and after the election, violent attacks. And those are going to increase. And I know a lot of people are talking about this, but I would be irresponsible if I didn't bring it up on my channel as well. We've had this for quite some time now. We've had people like Philip Mudd of the CIA, Brennan, Clapper, Hayden, etc., calling for the overthrow of the president, even up to and including assassination. That's been hinted at or said outright. But now we have, of course, people like Maxine Waters, and we've also heard it from others, but she's probably the best example. Of course, we even heard it from Loretta Lynch saying, blood in the streets and that kind of thing. This is serious, and this is what they do. You have freedom of speech as long as you agree with them and say what they want you to say. The minute that you say something they don't like, then they attack you, whether it be by name calling, etc., or violently, like we're seeing played out now and getting prepared to. I was really happy to see Nancy Pelosi stand up against Maxine Waters. That kind of surprised me under the circumstances, but then again, Nancy's been there for quite a while, and I think maybe she knows the game here is not going to play out well if she doesn't speak up. So it's probably a CYA thing on her part. I don't think she's really upset that Republicans are being attacked or Trump supporters. But, and I don't even want to say Republicans and Democrats anymore, because really this whole division is turned into good and evil. That's really what it is. God spoke and things came into being. So speaking your mind, I mean, it's one thing to be cruel to somebody, abuse them, but stating your mind about issues and all of that, that's not. And to shut that down is obviously a satanic, Luciferian, for lack of a better term, tactic. And we see that in Saul Alinsky's writings, and Marx and all of the others. So it really is a problem. And why I named this live stream Deeds Not Force is, if you ever watch the original Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston and, all that, Ann Baxter, I think was her name, who played Nefertiti, Yul Brynner, etc., there was a scene there because Moses was just doing things. He was doing things for the Pharaoh. He didn't get into the drama. He was just doing his thing. But he was being accused all the time of different things, like trying to seize power, trying to take the power away from the people had the right to rule, that kind of thing. That whole argument, kind of what we're seeing now in the government now, that the IC, the FBI, those people think they're the government and they have the right to do what they're doing despite the will of the people, etc. And all the propaganda and the disinformation and the lies and the deceits that go along with that. Well, so Ramses comes to Pharaoh Seti and says, he's trying to do this, he's trying to take this by force, he's doing this, he's doing that. And then Seti, the Pharaoh, calls Moses in and says, what am I hearing here? I'm hearing these accusations. And Moses says, look, I'm building this, we've done this, we've done this thing here, let me show you. And he takes him and he opens the curtains and he shows this vast city that he's building that's to honor Seti, the Pharaoh. Well, Ramses hasn't done anything like that. All he's done is sat and accused and complained and obstructed. Does that sound familiar? Been jealous, wanted power, was willing to do anything to get it, lie, cheat, steal, whatever. Pharaoh sees this and he turns to Ramses and he says, what man needs to take the throne by force who has earned it by his deeds? Donald Trump didn't need to do this. And, I have a lot of people, and I am hard on Trump. I know that, and I always give that caveat because he's in a political arena now. And because I've been critical, it's because I appreciate the fact that he stood up for the principles that he has. And I don't want him to abrogate those based upon the pressures of the military-industrial complex, the deep state, the intelligence community, New World Order, all that kind of stuff. I shouldn't use the word stuff. Anyway, so he didn't need to step out of that arena that he was in, where he was doing very well and living a good life, and we all know this, and to come in and try to right this ship of state, this constitutional republic that we actually lost some time ago. And so he's not trying to seize power. What he's done is he's proven his commitment to the principles by his deeds. And I just wanted to bring that up this morning because that's so very, very important as we're looking at this entire thing. Again, you can't trust any man completely, but you look at the alternatives. I had one person write me and say, well, Trump is bad and you've always known he is. Well, no man is perfect. But again, what are the alternatives? Oh, you just turn to Jesus, is what a very common response to that is. I don't want to go down that road too far, but I will just say this, okay? It's real easy to believe in something you've never seen or that you've created in your own mind and heart. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people to hear me say. But I will say this. All of you who think Jesus will save you if you sit back and do nothing, and all you do is criticize someone who is trying to do the best good that they can in the real world. If that's all you can do, then we're all in a lot of trouble. Because, and I'll tell you this right now, if you met and I'm just going to say it this way, the personage that you know as Jesus, if you actually met him, I think most of you wouldn't like him, because he wouldn't fit into the little mold that you've been almost forced to believe in because of the lies and deceits about him and what he was really about, and the purposes that serves those who want to control you. No, I think if you met him in an elevator somewhere, you would probably not particularly like him very much, because he definitely wouldn't meet your expectations, because it's what you have conjured up in your heart and mind as to what he's like. That's called idolatry. Okay? Idolatry takes many forms, and paganism is always what we call the person who doesn't believe like us. That's a bad way to be. And I won't say anything more about it here this morning. I keep talking about these philosophies, and I'd like to get into the details, but I'm not sure that it's really worth it anymore. I think the divide has occurred, and what we're seeing now primarily with all this fighting and these threats of violence and all that are just the end results, the fruits of all the evil that is in the world, and it's being separated from what you would call good. And I know there's kind of a fine line there in some circumstances, but I see it everywhere. I see it everywhere. So Trump's done a lot of great things. Yeah, I didn't like him going into Syria. I'm worried about him now refunding the white helmets rather. I call them white hats. The white helmets and the whole thing that's going on in Syria now, the efforts to overthrow Assad. No, I don't like the mullahs in Iran. But if we get involved in regime change again, that's going outside the promises that he kept. Do we want to assist the Iranian people? How far do we want to go getting into these foreign entanglements? Iranian people have their own problems. I mean, we have to change our own government. Look how oppressive our own government is before we go and we try to tell somebody else how to run their lives. Again, I don't like the mullahs, but we have these problems in our country. And so I don't want him to be doing this. I want him to get rid of the scum and the muck and the crap like Clapper and Comey and Hillary, and we can go all the way down the list. The three-letter agencies, the way the FBI is being run now, and the Justice Department, all of that, what happened at Bundy Ranch and what they tried to cover up there, which was, again, of course, trying to protect Hillary, trying to find out what kind of evidence was out there on her and suppressing it, and to create a stir and put down people that are trying to stand up against her criminality and her treason. So I want to clean up here first before we try to help anybody else, and I think everybody understands you got to have your own house in order before you're out there, telling everybody else how to run theirs. Again, the situation in North Korea was the right thing to do, and I'm absolutely behind that. But that came back again on what RIC is doing, and of course Iran is there too. But there are some slight differences. Anyway, let's talk about some other things that Trump has done that are just fantastic. One, of course, and again, I'm not a financial guy, but he's done away with the estate tax. Now, that was always an unjust tax, and that's definitely Marxist. The state taxes are definitely Marxist. In other words, it's saying that your property doesn't belong to you or your posterity. It always belongs to the state. And of course, I could talk about property taxes and those types of things too. But at any rate, the estate tax is gone away. And, I have friends who have been farmers their entire life, or ranchers, and it's gone back generations. Or people that have had their family businesses for generations. And the concept of these Marxist leftists is that Obama said it, you didn't build that, somebody else did. So using that excuse, they take away from the family that's trying to build their own legacy and their own independence, their own economics. They take it away from them and redistribute the wealth. And that's wrong. That's just theft legalized. That's all that is. And it ruins the work ethic. It ruins the concept of a family legacy and working together, and the concept of independence. And of course, that's what they want to destroy. And Trump's done away with that. A lot of people will say, well, they've got all this money. That's not always the case. I'll tell you what, farmers can barely pay their bills sometimes, especially with the way these big agri-corporations are trying to steal the show, and things like Monsanto. But that's really we really have to save the legacy and the scripture. There's a scripture that brings this up, and I might as well bring it up. It's in Malachi, and it says, and I will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to the fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. Now, yeah, that's biblical, but the concept is there, right? It's the carrying on of the family name, the family business. It has a lot of other ramifications too, which proves that God wants families, and that's the natural order of things, not what this other side is talking about. And I could get into some real deep discussions on just that scripture alone, but I think it proves my point. We don't want to destroy those ties to our past and our future, those threads. And the estate tax was doing it. It was destroying families and making corporations the recipient of all the blessings. And they're not even living organisms. It's interesting they're called corporations. I don't know if you understand the etymology of that, but that's interesting that that's what they call it. Because corporations, to be incorporated, say 120 years ago, was a privilege, and you had to show that what you were doing was in the public interest. Well, now that's all changed because of the nature of the New World Order in Babylon, etc. And I don't want to get into too much detail there. But my point is that Trump did that because he really believes in the family, and he believes in hardworking Americans who should keep the fruits of their labor, because that's liberty. To take it from them, there has to be some social safety net, I guess. And a lot of people, when I said this before on the housing thing, I got questions about, are you a Democrat? We have to do things responsibly. I'll just put it that way. Some of the nuts and bolts get kind of difficult, but stealing from a family to give it to somebody, especially somebody who's coming into the country illegally, is wrong. You wouldn't do it in your own house. If somebody came and broke into your house, you're not going to give them something. I mean, some Christians might think that's the way to go, but there's a definite difference in the scriptures between a sojourner, somebody passing through your land, a traveler, a visitor, etc., and an invader. There's a big difference. And that's trying to be obscured right now by people who don't understand it, even Christian ministers. So anyway, I wanted to bring up the situation on the estate tax. And of course, there's so many other things that Trump has done. But of course, I will call him out on the things that I'm concerned about, and I think we need to do that. He needs to hear it anyway. So I think that's important to do. All right, well, there are more of these attacks, like I said, coming against Trump. And I want to make sure that you understand that those who are attacking Trump and Trump supporters and the constitutional republic, etc., and what's being fomented right now, and it's been going on for some time, but now we're reaching a critical stage, as Mike Adams has said from Natural News and others. We're seeing an alliance between the intelligence community, the FBI. Look at their actions against Trump and against the American people, against the constitutional republic, and the people that are part of, say, the leftist side of things, Antifa, etc. Although it's not just limited to them now. We're getting, and I don't want to mention any specific names here, but we're getting groups of people, individuals, groups of people, even companies, etc., that are attacking first by restricting their ability to buy and sell, visit places they want to, speak their mind, etc. And it's moving now into a violent position where they will, I think they will go to violence to the point where they will start, and I've warned about this for a long time, that the bottom line is they want to kill you. And it's that mindset that's been around, and people kind of laughed at folks like me, that warned about this, but it's a mindset, and it's really there, and it goes right up the line all the way to Soros and others up in the elites. We're seeing it now. Scripturally, we don't have a lot of hope, because the scriptures talk about that the beast will make war with the saints and will prevail. It does say that, but does that mean that just because the scripture says it, we just lay down and die? No, because scripture gives you a path, and a lot of people don't understand that. Prophecy is a path. It's like Nineveh and Jonah. You do this and this is going to happen. You do this and that's going to happen. So the choice is still there. It's not set in stone. And there are other factors involved that will come in. But I can guarantee you that we need to stand up against this evil. We need to stand up against it. And as Mike Adams said, we don't fire the first shot. We don't throw the first punch. We don't do any of those things. But we need to be ready to respond and help the proper, competent authority, let me put it that way, that would stand up against this. I don't like all police. I was one once. I can be critical of what they've now become. They're more militaristic than police. They're more militaristic and public masters than what they're supposed to be, which is public servants. I understand all that. And I don't like having to select, between the lesser of two evils. But these people that Maxine Waters is pushing, and that we're seeing attack, and what's his name? Dooch. It's funny. It's a really funny name. Donnie Dooch. Wow, it almost sounds like douche. I think that's how he pronounces it. He was saying, we don't need to, and I talked about him the other day. We don't need to, and we shouldn't be attacking Trump anymore. That's not doing any good. We need to attack Trump supporters. There we are. A Democratic operative saying that. And, of course, Maxine Waters and John Brennan, all like I've said, these people are serious. I'm very uncomfortable with the idea that conservatives, Christians, even vets think that because of their training and their stand that they're going to be able to repel or fight back against leftists because they can't, the excuse is, well, they don't know how to fight, they don't know how to shoot, et cetera, et cetera. What they do know how to do is organize, and that's something that even now, and I've warned about that in the conservative movement. You see all this division in the conservative movement because everybody wants to be right. They always forget about the end objective. They want to be right. They don't want to get right. Everyone wants to be right. No one wants to get right. And there can be arguments for and against on both sides as to what all that entails. But I see that happening right now, and I'm not going to get into the particulars, but I warned about it, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. A lot of people are wondering why WikiLeaks came out with this thing with ICE. I'm jumping around a little bit here, but you'll understand why in a minute. And doxing all those ICE employees. And that was wrong. I'm sorry. There's no excuse for that. It's wrong. And I know that information was available elsewhere and all that, but that is I'll tell you, the deceit out there and the commandeering of our infrastructure by the evil forces is really, really ramping up. And you really can't tell the difference. And a lot of people want to pick sides. They want to say, I'm going to follow WikiLeaks, or I'm going to follow, I'll just say it, Q, or I'm going to follow whatever, all right? You're falling into the same trap in another way of selecting personality over principle. You notice, and I don't mean to pat myself on the back here, but this is important to understand. It's why I'm hard on Trump. Okay? I watch him for the principles that he espouses and deals with and accomplishes. Not him as a personality. When he's wrong, I'm going to say it. When WikiLeaks is wrong, however, if CIA took it over, if they're just making a bad call, whatever, we need to call them out on it. The same thing with Q or any other news source or people that are trying to influence your mind. You can't choose who you're going to listen to based on their personality or your feelings. You've got to go with the principles. And I'm telling you, if we keep down this road that's going on, it will continue to divide us. I'll just say that, okay? Let me go back to the situation with the left and how it's allied with the FBI, the IC, etc. And it's plain as day for anybody that wants to look at it, who's honest with themselves. We see the coup plotters basically doing the same thing that Maxine Waters wants and the left. And it's been violent. It's been hidden from view, but it has been violent. There have been some bad things happening inside the government that are being hidden from view, but they're occurring. Las Vegas was a good example of that. The Boston bombing was a good example of that. You know, I've been very distrustful of the FBI and the IC for a long time. And everybody wants to say it's just at the top. It isn't. As I've pointed out, this mindset that's in the upper echelons of the FBI, they've hired for those types of mindsets throughout their organizations for at least 2 decades. This is bigger and a much greater problem than most people are willing to realize. I could talk about, there were a group of agents who were going to go and testify in Congress, and then they chickened out basically because, and it's coming out now. Comey said anybody who stands up against him on his Clinton deal, they're going to retaliate against them. They're out of control. They're an evil, wicked shadow government. That's what they are. But getting back to my point, good American people stood up against the DOJ, the FBI, and the implementation of the New World Order in America when they stood up at Bundy Ranch against the BLM and the stealing of the land, which was being orchestrated by Harry Reid, Hillary Clinton, etc. Those were the early stages of all this business we now know as Uranium One, the Chinese connections, and all of that. The government wasn't willing to stop it. The FBI and the DOJ went along with it, and they hid the information from the American people. Where were the FBI agents then? I could tell you some stories about what happened there, and I won't right now. I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole. But it took one good BLM agent, Larry Wooten, to come out. Now, there were some questions on his first memo. I thought maybe he was holding back too much, but then I found out there's a second memo. My point is that there really are 2 groups of people. You can bet, and there were radical leftists who agreed with everything that the government was doing with stealing ranchers' land and the deceitful and underhanded way they went about it. And it's continuing today. There are other examples of that, but Bundy Ranch is something that I can speak from personal experience about what I saw there. So there's a difference between standing up for a constitutional Republican principle, not the party, the constitutional Republic principle, and the leftist principles of the government owns everything and they even own you. They're the masters, not the servants. And that's how the leftist Marxists approach it, not from the idea of the perfect law of liberty. So, ending that discussion here, I want to again explain that if you look at this, the FBI, the IC, the Department of Justice side with the leftist Marxists. That's very dangerous. And as I've called for a long time, Trump needs to act. Chris Farrell of Judicial Watch, and now other people are coming out and saying the same thing that Matt Bracken, myself, and Craig Sawyer said for some time, that Trump needs to take action with using Article 2, Section 2. I've talked about that before, taking control of the government. That's why I say you want to make sure you go with a competent authority for lots of reasons if they need assistance. You don't want to go out and be vigilantes or that kind of thing. Protect yourself, that's different. But at any rate, so we've said he needs to use Article 2, Section 2 to get these directorships going, to bypass the corruption in Congress and in the 3-letter agencies. And also, go ahead. I mean, I think it's in the works. I'm starting to see some indications that Trump is ready to move at the right time. I sure hope so. What's he going to use? I think, as I've said, he has his own investigative team. I'm not sure who they are, but that's probably not a big deal. What the big deal is that the U.S. Marshals, even though they're part of DOJ, and I mentioned this before, portions of the DHS, and the U.S. Marine Corps can all be used by Trump to, it'd start a shooting fight. There's no doubt about that. Because the IC will say that he's trying to overthrow the government when it's just, yeah, overthrow their shadow government. Yeah, that's true. Because remember, Clapper thinks that that's their democracy is what they're talking about. The two wolves and a lamb for dinner. That's their institutions, not the American people's institutions. So they're going to fight this. But I think Trump's trying to work through this whole thing before he has to drop that hammer. But that hammer has to be available to him, and he must keep it in reserve. If not, be ready to use it soon. So I know I harp on that a lot, but I see us getting into a really bad position if we're not prepared to go there. So I just wanted to bring that up again real quick, and let's see what else we've got here. Of course, this is old news now, but you can see how bad it's getting when you have people. This Canadian Dassault, I think was his name, and Peter Fonda. First of all, they threatened Barron, and then they threatened Chloe, who is Don Jr.'s 4-year-old daughter. Those are demons that do that kind of thing. I hope you understand that. These are not reasonable, logical, and they certainly have no love in their hearts. These are wicked, evil people, both wicked and evil, and we're seeing that more and more. So when you look at all that, if you consider Trump to have been a placebo, and I worry about that, I said that. Trump being a placebo, oh, he's really playing the other side. Hold on a minute. Look at what they're doing to him. You think that's drama? You think that's theatrics to fool us? No, it's gone too far. It's gone too far, and there's no way that Trump is in their court. There's just no way. What I do worry about is will they buy him off some way by doing horrible things to his family or threatening to? Or will they assassinate him? Those are real possibilities. I don't think he'd give in on threats to his family. I don't think so, because he knows what, studying Sun Tzu, he'd have to understand what the end result of that's going to be. It would be inevitable, the same result. So I can't see him going down that road. But assassination is still a real problem. Of course, they're still trying to out him using the 25th Amendment and those types of things. But the point is, these attacks are getting worse and worse all the time. Okay. Last live stream I had, and I can't remember his name, whatever, pardon me, Mistriel, something like that. Let's see if I can see them on here. Probably not. They asked me to cover a situation with the Secret Service agent who filed a RICO lawsuit against Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, David Brock, et cetera, et cetera. And I was saying, well, why don't you cover that? And I'd still ask you to do that, but I will mention it here because I have looked into it. And yes, this is a great thing. Former Secret Service agent Gary Burns has filed a RICO lawsuit against the Clintons. The Clintons attacked him for him doing the investigation back several years ago against the president and HRC, actually, and they retaliated against him. They've basically considered him an enemy, and it really is a RICO conspiracy type situation that they acted on him and in other areas as well. And so Burns has filed this civil lawsuit. Now, I guess when you can't get the DOJ and the FBI to go after Clinton, then, or even local police departments, and I don't know how that would work actually in a situation like this, but I guess that only leaves you with the possibility of a civil suit. At least maybe you can get the information out in the open. I don't know how effective that's going to be. I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do. I'm just not sure that it's going to be beneficial in the long run. But I wish him all the success in the world to uncover the seditions, the criminal acts, even the treasonous acts of Clinton and her cartel that she belongs to, or that she runs, and she runs a big part of it. But he's putting himself in danger, and of course all of those who are And where's the FBI out there to protect people like him? They're not. They threw him away like they did Robin Gritz and Sybil Edmonds and a number of others. They're not about truth, justice, and the American way. They're not about fidelity, bravery, and integrity. No, they're about themselves and about those evil, wicked people that they're trying to support so that they can all stay in power. So anyway, I just wanted to throw the Burns case out there. It was because of Burns' investigation of the Clinton during the Clinton impeachment, and he became an enemy of the Clintons because of that. Back on some of Trump's deeds, I want to point out again, because a lot of people may have forgotten, Trump's not taking the presidential pay. Have we forgotten about that? Now, some people say, well, that's just pocket change for him anyway. He wants the power. Regardless how you look at that, he's not taking the presidential pay. And he's donating that probably to federal agencies, which is kind of disappointing. But in a way, I can see why he's kind of stuck doing that. That way they can't accuse him of trying to help any kind of a private organization that he might have any remote affiliation with. So that's probably a very smart move on his part. The point is, he's trying to use it for good purposes. Let's remember that. Of course, the Russian thing is kind of falling apart. Well, it actually has, but Mueller is still after it, and they're going after a lot of his financial actions and those of his associates, going way, way back. This thing is way out of control. And of course, no look into to Clinton's. Now, a lot of people, I've even seen this recently where people are still saying, well, Mueller's actually secretly investigating the Clinton Foundation, et cetera, et cetera. I will not give credence to that until I see hardcore evidence. And at this point, it doesn't exist. Oh, that's because they're so good at hiding it. No, the deep state would know about what's going on. Okay, I don't buy that they're hiding this from the deep state, that he's secretly investigating the Clinton Foundation, and et cetera. Oh, he's touching on it, no doubt. But I think they're trying to suppress that evidence, just like they did, in all the other instances, like the Clinton emails, et cetera. All of that they've tried to suppress. So until Mueller actually does something, I don't trust him. Does something to support Trump. I don't see that at all now. There's a possibility. I mean, you got to look at this. For those who think that Mueller was put in there to help Trump, that this was all some kind of grandiose scheme that Trump dreamed up, 40 chess, whatever. Have you ever thought that maybe Mueller played Trump? I mean, if you believe that line of reasoning, that Mueller actually was hired by Trump to take care of all this, what about Mueller turning on Trump anyway? Have you ever thought that maybe that could happen? Oh no, Trump has too much on him. He has the whole thing of covering up 9/11 and all of that. Don't bet on it, okay? All right, don't bet on it. Look, watch what happens. Use some intelligence and like I said at the beginning of this, look at principles, not personalities. Try to look underneath the surface of what's going on, and don't do it from a position of you're trying to verify your own bias. I see a lot of researchers out there who they go through meticulously all these reports and all these different evidences, reports primarily, or congressional records or whatever's going on. They go through and they meticulously look, but they're just looking, I see it all the time, they're just looking for those things that will support what they have already determined to be the case. I see it all the time. And that's a very bad thing to do, but it's common. I don't know if I should bring this one up. I'm waiting for Devin Nunes. How long has Devin Nunes and that whole group been threatening the FBI and the DOJ to find them in contempt? And they just keep kicking the can down, or they set a deadline and they don't act upon it. And here we go again. It's happening again. I don't know what's happening this morning. I think they said, well, now it's Monday at 5 p.m. You don't make idle threats, guys and ladies. you got to stick by what you say. You should have found Rosenstein. That's another thing. The FBI came out. Well, no, we're supposed to. The FBI, we're responsible for protecting confidential sources. And I told stop letting them use these idiotic national security excuses to hide the evidence. You can't let them do that. Confidential sources, they know they can't say, well, it'll threaten national security now, so they're using this confidential source thing. But of course, they were using these informants, these spies, on the Trump thing. And who they're really trying to protect are the people who did all of this, right? Congress just needs to get some some cojones, I'll put it that way, and just go do it. But I haven't trusted Congress for a long time, so where's this going to go? What's Trump saying? Well, Trump's saying that he might have to get involved. He's been trying to stay out of it, but he might have to get involved. No, President Trump, you must get involved. You must use the U.S. Marshal Service, you must use the DHS, and you must use the United States Marine Corps. And you must act soon, because nobody else is going to. I hope you do act. Okay. I've often talked about the necessity of prepping, praying, and staying out of the way. And if this civil war continues to go down the road that it looks like it is, I think that those three principles will take on new meaning. It's always better to be prepared a year early than a day too late. You've heard me say that many, many times. Don't take offensive action. Remain defensive, but you can assist local law enforcement, etc., in trying to repel these problems. But just be careful and make sure that they're actually on the right side. I'll just put it that way. But where I'm going with this is that I don't see really, and here's scripture again. The scripture says that in the last days there will be a famine in the land, not a famine of bread or a lack of food to eat, but a famine of the Word of God. And the way I interpret that is righteous people. Everybody makes mistakes. I'm not talking about the little sins you do every day, and we all do. I'm talking about, you don't purposely go out to commit evil. That the people that are choosing that and that abide by that principle of not choosing to commit evil, they're becoming, at least the way things are looking, rarer, more rare by the day. So just be aware of that and try to raise your understanding, your consciousness up to the higher levels to withstand this onslaught that's now really going to get bad. It really is going to get to the point where if you don't agree with the Marxist leftist side, they will pull the trigger on you. They will. And that's what's meant by there will be a famine in the land. That the love of the fruit of the womb and of your fellow man will be gone. And we're seeing that more and more every day. So prep, pray, stay out of the way. And I'm going to end on this, and then we'll go to a few things in chat. Like I said, I got to get moving here. It's already been 45 minutes. I quoted this gentleman probably maybe 6-8 months ago. And people are going to say, why are you quoting him? He's everything that's wrong with what's going on in the U.S. and et cetera, there are all kinds of things. But I'm going back to principle, okay? If somebody says something that's true, I'm going to repeat it. And I'm going to tell you about this with this preface. I already talked a few minutes ago about, and most of you wouldn't know Jesus if you met him in an elevator because he wouldn't match up to the image, the idol that you've built in your hearts and minds about what he should be like. Okay, that's how that's going to work out if you actually meet him. For a lot of you will find him refreshing, and everything that you hope for, or would like. Let me put it that way. Maybe not hope for, but a lot of people would reject him just because he doesn't fit their idolatrous image, and that's just a fact. And I could go into that in historical reasons and others, but I'll just say it that way for right now. And I know it'll tick off a lot of Christians, but that's just the fact of the matter, and I will say it. People who don't want to take responsibility for their lives, who want to blame it on others, or who are not in control. And of course, in politics, most of us have no control of that at all, right? Or what's happening in the world. So we leave it to God, and rightly so. But to hammer down on those who are trying to accomplish something and saying that their problem is that they don't trust Jesus, and then use that as an excuse for name calling, or just to fail to act, is all too common. So I'm going to give you this quote. It's not exactly a quote because I can't remember exactly how he said it. But if you're honest with yourselves and you look through history, even those of you who are Christians will have to admit that this is true. Regardless of where you think Jesus came from, or who he is, or was, or anything else, this is the truth. And it has to do with the Hebrew language. Really. It has to do with the yod. The yod is the smallest letter. It looks very much like a sperm. And it also means hand and some other things. So I'm going to tell you what this gentleman said. And just Jesus' example alone, and what it said in the second chapter of Genesis, that the woman's seed would be separated from the serpent's seed, and that the serpent's seed would have power to bruise his heel, but the woman's seed, that which would come from her womb, will crush his head. So this statement by this gentleman is absolutely true. And this is what you have to consider, that God uses men. Sometimes women, but I'm going to say men. He uses men. The women are there to inspire the men and to make them do the right thing, or encourage them to do the right thing. But this is a truism, and I'm going to say it. And yes, it was said by Louis Farrakhan. And I'm not exactly quoting this now, but I will say it, okay? When God answers a prayer, it is through the womb of a woman. There's most of you know that when Moses asked God what his name was when he was on Mount Sinai, and God was telling him he's going to have to go down and tell the Israelites all these things, and Moses says, what do I tell him? Who do I tell him you are? What's your name? What am I going to tell him your name is? And the common belief is that God said, I am that I am. And that's not actually what it is. It's actually, I will be whom I will be. Think about that. I will be whom I will be. I will reveal my hand through whoever I choose. You can look at Elijah. You can look at Isaiah. You can look at Moses. You can look at Jesus. And Christianity gets around that by saying, well, Jesus is God incarnate. Well, regardless, as I said here a minute ago, and Louis Farrakhan said it, when God answers a prayer, it is through the womb of a woman. So this idea that you're looking for something out here that's going to take care of all this for you isn't borne out in the scriptures. I'm sorry, it isn't. You trust in God, but he works through the yod, the hand, the seed, the womb of the woman. Okay, I'm done. I've got just a few minutes here. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Okay. Yeah, somebody's saying here, and I agree with that. God doesn't want us to lay down and be murdered and destroyed. No, He does not. That's not what it is. That's a teaching of complacency that the devil places in you. Okay, so that he can do his work. That's true. I believe that very much. Yeah, our actions are guided by God. I think that's a good way to look at it, and that's why I think Trump is trying to do the right thing. Trump has had an interesting life. He and I have been similar. The only thing he kind of did that I didn't was he made a lot of money. But we've traveled much the same path. It's very interesting how that is, and that's why I understand him the way I do, and why I'm hard on him the way I am. My Republican insider in California, who we're trying to decide if he wants to come on and how, he kind of wants to hide his voice and some other things, which I understand under the circumstances. If you understood it completely, you'd know why. But, he has studied Trump all of his life. He hasn't met him personally, but he's very much into studying Trump from top to bottom. He understands him probably better than most of the people in his own family, is the way I look at it. And he basically says that Trump, for one, is for real. He really does believe in the principles that he says. He might be a little short on some of the details, especially constitutional ones, and that needs to be fixed. But the Trump is the real deal. And of course, I would agree with that. And there was some information that came out this week, as some of you might know this, that there were claims that Trump is saying that the plan was never for him to run for a second term. Have you all heard that? Yeah, probably have. Well, I brought this up to this Republican insider and said, well, it's being reported now, not just in the mainstream news, but in the alternative news, by a number of people, that Trump never had a plan to run the second term and that he's not going to. And this Republican insider, he didn't just laugh, he was upset. And he said, I can tell you that's not true. I know Trump better than anybody, and Trump's not going to walk away from this. They will have to kill him to get him out of office, to keep him from running for a second term. That's what they will have to do. So despite what you're hearing out there, I think this guy, he's been right on the money, 100% on everything he's talked about with Trump. And I tell you more about this guy, but I'd like him to explain it himself if he ever will. He is convinced that Trump is not going to give up his second term that easy, if at all. So I just thought I'd bring that up. Yeah, Don Sears, I think that's right. Trump is the man he was destined to be. By will, by intent, by destiny, Trump will run again. And I think that's true. I think that's true. Oh, okay. I will do that. Mr. Vitez, Roy, talk about why the police are so bad. Talk about they are run by the corporate rats. That's very true. Well, look, police. Consider what the word police means. It means policy, right? That's the root. That's the etymology of it. Policy. Not necessarily even law. Police were never really mentioned in our Constitution. Of course, it was U.S. Marshals and the idea of local law enforcement elected by the people, but the sheriffs and all of that. But, as a police officer, I saw very early on that there was and this was back in the 80s, and of course this is moving along this direction anyway, that it was going from public servants to public masters, that they were there to enforce the will of the corporate people, be it good or bad. And you see that all the time. Well, we're going to enforce the law. Well, there is discretion, especially if you know the law is bad. And then we know about jury nullification, all that, and how the courts have tried to nullify jury nullification. But at any rate, the police have been in training for a long time now, very similar to what the Israeli IDF goes through. And that's basically shoot first, ask questions later, that your safety is more important than the safety of anybody else in the public. It's a bad situation. And police can be corrupted very easily, and they have been. We've seen evidence of that. Look at Baltimore, what's going on there with the killing of, I don't have his name here right now, but the Baltimore detective that was looking into arms and drugs that were being dealt with by the very team in the department that was supposed to be actually stopping, working against drugs and guns in the hands of criminals. And they killed him, and they covered it up. And there are multiple other examples of that, and I don't want to get into it. What the LVMPD is doing right now, they're bowing down to the corrupt FBI with what happened in the Las Vegas shooting at the Harvest 91 festival. Corruption, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's why the corporations, that's why the New World Order, that's why the United Nations knew that they had to get control of local police and sheriffs. And they've worked towards it. And again, the only thing that's stopping that is the personal integrity, the principle in the individuals involved who are in those positions. And when they do try to do the right thing, as the FBI agents have said, Comey will retaliate against anybody who stands up to point out how the FBI covered up the Clinton investigation, which didn't exist anyway. It was all a pretend investigation. So that mindset has gone all the way down to your local police. Even worse, to your local water meter reader. I mean, it's that bad. So that's why I really worry about where this thing is going, because even though we need to, they've put us in a situation where the enemy has become law enforcement. It really has. I mean, despite all the accoutrements and all the nice language that President Trump says, well, we love our cops, our police, man, there are a lot of problems there. There are a lot of good people still, but they have lost the idea of being public servants. It really has gone down the wrong path. So I don't know if this is recoverable. The other day, some people were saying, we don't know if the United States can be saved, that Babylon can be saved, because it is. It's so wicked. It's lost its understanding of good, of the real principles of what promotes life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And you can see it in our police departments, the way they handle things. So even though I say that when the left strikes us, we need to support the local police, I also am saying be careful, because they might be the ones that also go with the leftist Marxists. You just don't know at this point. So it's a little more complicated than Mike Adams would have us believe. That's why you need to know who your local sheriffs and police are now and know where they sit. Okay? Yeah, there are some real problems there, and I'm kind of beating around the bush because it's such a massive problem, and I recognize that. All right, let's see. Yeah, Phil, see, you're right. Police are not to rule over us. That's exactly true. That's exactly true. Quite the opposite. Oh, wow, this is going fast, and we're almost at an hour. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Ballroom of Mars. Last week, Trump said he wants clean water and clean air. Do you think he can stop aerosol spray injection? I've talked to some people pretty much in the know about that, and unfortunately it's being run at a level that Trump probably can't actually do much about it yet. And that's a problem, because that is part of the 5G panopticon network that's going in. Trump's tried to slow that down with stopping the Broadcom Chinese company that was going to run our 5G in this country. He stopped that, which is good, but of course, there are other problems. But at any rate, the word is that he really doesn't have the power to do much about that yet. We'll see. Those things could not the stratospheric aerosol injection. Regardless of how you look at that, that's evil in almost every level. The 5G, not necessarily so in and of itself. It could be used for good if it was managed correctly. But of course, we know that when weapons are developed, they're used. They very rarely go without being used. So I don't know. It all depends on if Trump can set the example and raise the level of principle in this government where it needs to be. but that remains to be seen yet. Who controls the spring? Who are these people? There have been some white papers on that. I don't think that they've ever actually identified the people, but we know about the Harvard study. We know about the congressional information on it. If you want some good detailed information, Pam Jones for Liberty has a lot of that. You can go to her, and she has a lot of that information on her website and on her YouTube channel and on Twitter, just as an example. And there are others that have got some really good information on that. Basically, it is being run by the cabal as part of the way to destroy life on Earth and to control it. I'll just put it that way. They keep talking about the necessity of stopping solar or the heating of the Earth. Well, unfortunately, and here we go with the scriptures again. These people that think that they can change times and laws, and they do it for nefarious reasons. The plants need sunlight for photosynthesis. We need sunlight. The heat will, the Earth will manage itself, but this is all a scam. It's all a scam. The whole thing with carbon taxes, and carbon is a necessary part of the life cycle, but most people are too stupid to even know that. That reminds me of Mark Dice. He did a thing where he goes out on the boardwalk there, and he was asking people. He had a petition that said that basically that dihydrous oxide has become too common on the planet, and that it when uncontrolled, which of course water uncontrolled can destroy life, floods, falling off a boat and drowning and those types of things. But he went to and asked, I think it was just college students, and he said, we need, but he didn't call it H2O. He didn't say water, right? He called it by its chemical name, dihydrous oxide, and of course that sounds really nefarious, right? And he says, this is a petition to ban dihydrous oxide. Would you agree? Because it's caused, these different problems. It's killed people, et cetera, et cetera. And these college students were signing the petition. It shows you how ignorant people really are. They don't think, they don't ask questions. They've really been dumbed down, even college kids. Well, especially college kids. Okay. All right, let me see if there's any question here. Okay, envy me greatly. I got to admit that I understand what you're saying here. Not amused by independent media. They zombied out just like Main Street fake news prostitutes. That's happening. And that's why I talked about that earlier in this broadcast, and I said it before. There are movements, organizations, etc., that are out there for themselves pretending to be interested in restoring the Republic. It's kind of like jumping on a bandwagon. I don't know how far I want to go down this road right now. I'll say it this way. You have to apply the principle versus personality thermometer, barometer again. I'm not going to tell you who to listen to or who not to listen to. I'm just going to say that deceit is the name of the game, and it is mind-boggling how effective and scientific it is. So guess what? This divide that's happening in mankind, it really is an individual test. So I'll just say it this way. Choose carefully. It sounds like somebody else, of course, who was trying to say follow them. But buyer beware. Make your decisions based on principle, not personality. It's like this thing with WikiLeaks. Why did they come out with this thing on ICE? Doxing the ICE agents. That was a wrong thing to do. I don't care how they try to explain it. Was it even WikiLeaks that did it? Was it somebody else who took over? If that were the case, then why hasn't WikiLeaks, called that out. I don't know. So you really have to get down to an old saying, every tub needs to sit on its own bottom. You need to be able to make your choices based on pure, naked principle. And if you can't, if you have to be a member of an organization, or if you have to have somebody there, patting you on the back saying how good you are, or that thanks for being with our group, you joined our group. If that's more important to you than selecting your information and what you're going to work off of based on principle, if you're not going to base it on principle, but on personality or feel-good social programs, which is what most of these things are, then you have a problem. Okay? So base your decisions not on the place you get your information, but on how you process that information based on principle. I think that's the best way to look at it. Okay. Wow, there's a lot of interesting thing going on here, but it's been over an hour. I'll go ahead and go. Like I said, I have some other things to do. Plus, I haven't been drinking my coffee, and it's got cold, and I got to go heat it up. Thanks for coming. Keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears to the ground. Keep your situational awareness on high. Remember, the left is now moving into a position where not only are they name calling, but they're actually attacking people in public, especially people in Trump's cabinet, etc. Right? They're gonna work down. Remember, Donnie Deutsch said they're going to start attacking Trump supporters, conservatives. This is going to get bad. Depending upon what area of the country you live in, what cities you live in, your location, a lot of other things. But keep your situational awareness on high. Okay. Prep, pray, stay out of the way. Stay out of the way, but defend yourselves. Try not avoid, as Mike Adams said, don't fire the first shots. Back off of this thing if you need to, because we need to have righteousness on our side. Again, though, protect your life and your loved ones. That's always necessary. So, God bless you. God bless yours. God bless the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America and the Second American Revolution. And may God bless Donald Trump, that the spirit of discernment will distill upon him as the dews from heaven, that he will be able to choose the righteous thing to do and have the courage to do it. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate you coming. Just a little bit of information. I might be totally out of the net next week. I might have absolutely no ability to do any transmissions next week. Starting possibly Saturday for a week after that. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know about the area where I'm going, if it'll have capability for that. I'll just leave it at that. But if I can, I will. You'll hear from me, because I'm really concerned about what's going on with Nunes and that group and their reticence in following through with their threats. I find that to be extremely dangerous at this point, in a very, very sad situation. So I'm going to keep my eyes on that. But we'll see if I'm able to come back on or not. Just so you know, I'll probably be on Thursday morning, maybe. But then after that, it's all iffy for about a week. A lot of you will say, thank goodness, we'll have a reprieve. All right, everybody. New exit here from Pam Jones. She keeps sending me things. You notice the new intro I have? Boy, isn't that fantastic? I'm going to use that, I think, mostly on my documentaries, which I'm going to start working on here, and some other things, because I like that. I like that a lot. And I played it at the beginning of this. But she also gave me these exits for the end of my live streams, and so I'm going to play, actually she's given me 3 of them, and I'm going to play this one for you right now. So out here.